Do you believe GRC FedRAMP especially is a good entry point for an aspiring cloud security architect? Oh my God, yes. Absolutely. Yeah, you know why? Because so the question is, do I believe that GRC, specifically FedRAMP, and FedRAMP is, I don't remember a whole acronym, but it's the federal government's implementation of cloud technologies. That's all it is. It's like a compliance, the security compliance for cloud computing used by the government. That's what FedRAMP is. And is it a good entry point for somebody who's an aspiring cloud security architect? And yes, and the reason why is because the government has one of the strictest, they're one of the most strictest entities, especially the U.S. government, because they've been hacked so many times. They have one of the most strictest compliances. They're the most strict with compliance when it comes to information security. And they have so much bureaucracy in place. It just kind of gets difficult to get through things because they have so much bureaucracy. But the good thing is, after you know, I currently work in the private sector. I worked for the government for many, many years. But because I worked for the government, there's nothing that the private sector can throw at me that I don't already know or that I'm not familiar with, because I've been through the most tyrannical bureaucracy on planet Earth, which is the U.S. government. The way that they go through the NIST is a beast. So the FedRAMP, if you didn't know, actually uses risk management framework. It's actually it's not even that much different, to be honest. It's basically, they took the NIST 800 and the NIST 37, and they said, we're going to call this FedRAMP now, and it's for cloud. It's all they did. There's not much difference. The process is different. You have to go through like a third party. You got to go through a third party assessor. Like you'll do all the documentation, right? And you got to use their approved cloud technology with AWS, which everybody uses anyway. I think they got Google Cloud and stuff, some approved stuff on their list, right? So that's already like, you can only use these 10 products, Azure or whatever, right? And then there's a certain implementation that you have to use for those technologies, right? That's the first step. And then if you're using all that, if you're doing all the stuff that they said, you got to pick from this list. Okay, you pick from that list. Now you got to do all the documentation for it. It's basically a system security plan. It's a SAR if you did a scan, a security assessment report, and the scan results. And then, I don't know, like if you have to do a system security assessment plan, like there's certain and then artifacts, right? That's where most of your documents are. The artifacts is like, do you have a network diagram? You know, does the network diagram confirm that you have these IPs? Like it's stuff like, you know, that you have to put in there to verify that you are doing what you say you're doing, right? Those are the artifacts. It's evidence that you have security controls in place. That's what artifacts are. So most of the documents that you have to give to them to prove that, yes, we are protecting the users who have access to the cloud. Our privileged users all do have multi-factor authentication. What kind do you have? Implementation statement. We use RSA keys to get in there, whatever. You know, so whatever the case may be, you got to put all that documentation in there, and then you evaluate it yourself. Like, or your organization will be like, okay, we got everything. Okay, cool. We got the firewall rules. Everything's in there. You upload it to FedRAMP. They have this like site that you upload it to. A third-party organization is going to look through all your documentation, make sure everything is good. They have everything. And so they have a whole different process. Essentially, it's NIST 853. That's essentially what it is. And if you know that stuff for FedRAMP, yeah, you're set, man. If you could do the government stuff, it's so much more hardcore than the private sector. From a bureaucracy standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, for a governance and risk assessment standpoint, yeah, the government's way more strict. Way more strict. Especially if you've done intel or something like that. Oh my Lord, that stuff is ridiculous.